So hello everybody and welcome to our next session at Security Bio Live. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me here today and for all of your support for the event. Can we just start by introducing yourself and giving us a little insight into who you are and your background?
Yes, my name's Daniel Garnham. I'm the president and founder of the Security Industry Federation Trade Union. But I began my career in policing, where I served for 20 years, working in multiple roles across London for the British Transport Police. I was expert forensic body recovery officer, a cyber protect officer and digital trainer. During that time, I attended major crime and terrorist attacks, such as the Manchester Arena attack in 2017, where we now have the Protect Duty Martin's Law coming from. I was the force trauma manager for that event. After leaving the police, I gained my teaching qualifications and I lecture in criminology and cybercrime at London University. And I'm their resident cybercrime expert. So I kind of wear two hats at the moment with the businesses as I set up my own cyber training company, Genteam UK Cyber. And now I travel around the world teaching law enforcement and organisations through gamified learning. But it was during the time of leaving the police and setting up my business that I did my SIA door supervisor and CCTV courses. And then I went on to teach the CCTV SIA license for Get Licensed. It was through there that people were talking about their grumbles and their complaints about the security industry. And my go-to response, I suppose, as their trainer was, why don't you speak to your trade union, your employer, etc. And what they didn't have is that sounding board, that trade union bespoke for them. So that's when I decided that I was going to set one up.
Fantastic. Definitely quite a prolific career, to be honest, and quite a big understanding of the industry on both kind of the physical and the cyber side of the industry as well, which is quite unique. Obviously, this interview we're going to focus on obviously the Security Industry Federation and the work that you guys are putting in there. But it'd be great to catch up another time. We'll have to find out everything, all the nitty-gritties of what you're doing in cyber. But as you mentioned, obviously, you are the president of the Security Industry Federation. Do you mind just giving us a little background into what the trade union is and what it's for, what its dedication to?
Yeah, so like I say, during those SIA license courses, when I got to hear about those complaints, I was painted that picture of a high-risk, low-reward industry, and it was struggling to recruit or retain those skilled staff. So I put in place a plan to create the trade union and give these youth workers some hope that there were security experts out there that were genuinely concerned and would listen to them and would offer support where other unions maybe have tried and failed due to their lack of industry knowledge. The SIF is the UK's only certified trade union designated solely for security workers across the UK. So that's Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and England. And, we recognise that those security professionals are skilled workers, having undergone those rigorous SIA training, passing their licenses, their exams, and they put themselves in harm's way on a daily basis to protect us. That's what frontline security is all about. So you'll find that they're often the first responders and offer that vital evidence and that link between the police and the criminal justice system. So I think that the trade union for security in the industry here in the UK was long overdue. And in our first 14 to 15 months now, we have received widespread support from our frontline workers. And even we now have hundreds of members now relying on us to support them through tough times. We have good relationships with the Security Industry Authority and a lot of the main security employers, which is a testament to how we run things here. We're very fair. We're not one-sided. We listen to both sides of the argument before we start getting involved, because our reps are attending disciplinary meetings every week all over the UK, offering that advice and support to those who find themselves in those misconduct proceedings. So I'm proud to say we have an excellent record of successfully defending our members, and in some cases they've been able to go on to claim lots of money and compensation because of the way they've been treated. So, through the Security Industry Federation, our reward partners, the legal advice we give and the wellbeing support and that continued protection, I think that is, in a nutshell, what the Security Industry Federation is all about.
Well, thank you, and obviously you've just provided, some fantastic insight into the foundation of why you started the Security Industry Federation. In terms of context of kind of the need for the federation at the moment, could you describe a little bit about the current state of the security industry, from your opinion?
Yeah, so the way I see it is the UK security professionals, our frontline security in particular, are relied on more than ever. So there's around 460,000 SIA license holders compared to, say, 130,000 police officers UK-wide. So, they really outnumber police 4-1. It's our frontline security that are more likely to be the first on scene, whether that be deterring antisocial behaviour on a Saturday night, shoplifting, which we know is kind of a bit of a national crisis at the moment, right up to acts of terrorism, as we've seen with terrorist acts in this country. I think that recent global events pile more pressure on our security workers in the UK because we're seeing an increase in illegal immigration. We're seeing higher crime rates across the board. And we've now seen that world events in places like Ukraine, Gaza, and America can often have a knock-on effect into the UK, where protests are large scale. They have been turning violent because of opposing groups. And our frontline security are caught up in that crosshair. So we do need to ask ourselves, does the current training of security and the remit of security go far enough so that they are equipped for the challenges? But I certainly think that, the state of the industry at the moment, it's not down in the doldrums, that some people will tell you, but there is a long way to go before we can really say that we are a professional industry that get everything right most of the time.
Well, hopefully we will one day get everything right. It's difficult when, as I suppose, the security industry is definitely one that is so widespread into lots of different niches, lots of different other industries as well. So, but I think we've definitely seen some clear progression over recent years, and it's great to see that, and the work that you guys are putting in alongside other associations and federations as well. So it's really positive to see that outlook. So the Security Industry Federation is clearly an organisation that is much needed for security officers, and in the context of technology, mental health, and changing legislation as well. Could you identify or provide some further clarity into what you think are the biggest challenges that we're currently facing security officers and frontline personnel as well in their daily operations?
Yeah, so at the moment, obviously the increasing large-scale protests, that rise in shoplifting that we spoke about, doesn't show any signs of slowing down. There is an increased need for intervention to stop criminals from acting with impunity. We have, widespread debates here in the UK on every radio channel, on every news channel, saying that, how should we tackle this? I'll be very honest, I like my security to be security in the way that I like my police to be police. As long as they're acting within their remit and within the law, then they should be able to stop that behaviour. But the struggle that they are having currently is that there's no cohesion between, say, retailers, security employers, or even policing. So we've seen a sharp rise in representing our members at disciplinary meetings for intervention. And you would say that a lot of that is their job. If they're seeing someone steal a bottle of champagne and running out of a shop, you would look at the security and you would kind of be puzzled if they were just standing there with their hands in their pockets and not doing anything because they've got a policy not to put their hands on people. So that cardboard cutout deterrent isn't really working anymore. It might have been good 20 years ago, but it's not really working quite well right now. So they are confused. They're coming to us and telling us they're frustrated. They desperately wanted to do the job that they thought they were employed to do. So our 2024 manifesto calls on retailers and employers to come together and tackle this issue, empowering our security to prevent harm to people and property and within the scope of their training and the law, obviously. But another the big issue currently facing security officers at the moment is, are we going to retain them because of the pay issue, the working conditions? We've got an industry that seems to be stagnated in terms of wages for a long time, probably just over a decade. It's been overtaken by many other sectors. The security worker on the shop doorway is likely to be earning less than the shop worker stacking the shelves, but you could argue they have a greater responsibility and threat towards them of harm. So we're working with the Living Wage Foundation and other industry experts to address this and show companies and clients that the cost of effective and professional security actually looks like this. And actually we can then start retaining our skilled workers rather than seeing them being lost to other industries.
Definitely, and I think what you spoke about in terms of the retail scenario is a major challenge at the moment, and one that is warrants a lot of discussion around. And I know that we're going to have a panel discussion on that a little bit later, so I'm excited to see us really kind of dissect that challenge a little bit more and pose some solutions that potentially could actually instigate some change in that area. And to go into further detail in how technology plays a role as well, how has this rapid advancement impacted the work of security officers? As you said, security officers are supposed to be intervention, whereas technology has previously been kind of prevention, or recording incidents after post incident. So how has it affected them in terms of both positively and negatively?
Well, positively, the increased use of artificial intelligence in CCTV. I see a lot and talk about a lot to the industry experts and CCTV facial recognition and how it's assisting our frontline workers in identifying individuals of interest, so they're working smarter. But negatively, there is, on the flip side of that, there are members that come to us and say that they're already afraid that technology is going to replace them. A bit like how you've seen on the railway with talk for years now of conductors being replaced by machines, etc. So we want to address their concerns. We want to make sure that the issue of losing stock and the cost isn't just being passed on to the customer, because if you don't have a security worker there, then people are still going to walk out regardless of whether they've been on some sort of facial recognition CCTV. Clearly, we know that a lot of people wear masks and hoods, so you're only going to see a set of eyes. So it's going to have some pitfalls. The technology is good, so that's what I would say, and it's getting better every day. But it's not a replacement for a security professional standing at that store that can talk to people and see people. And police clearly don't have the resources to retrospectively investigate all of these crimes where they get images of people, because they haven't got the resources to actually come and attend in person for shoplifting. And we've seen over the years how it went from 100 to now £200 before the police would actually come and deal with a shoplifter. So there's always those goalposts moving. So I don't think that, yes, the technology is great, getting better, but we can't do away with a physical presence of deterrence.
Definitely. And another core element that you mentioned as well, that I think kind of warrants discussion in this remit is mental health and well-being. And obviously this comes into play in a whole number of ways, including obviously the difficulties and danger and the responsibility of the role itself, as you mentioned, but also kind of the taboo reputation and generalization that security officers have from the general public or from customers themselves, and the contextual challenges that obviously you mentioned as well. Having said that, what initiatives is the Security Industry Federation undertaking to support security officers in these areas that are constantly evolving?
So I mentioned earlier that I was the force trauma manager for the Manchester Arena attack in 2017, and having that training and listening to the tales of the officers that turned up on the scene or had to place a cordon on that scene for the days afterwards, it was really important that their mental health was looked after, because again, they are first on scene, they are our first responders and our frontline. So we had in policing a company called Care First that you would phone 24/7, and they would put you in touch with a counsellor and they would give you on the spot support. So the first thing I did when I set up the Security Industry Federation was give Care First a call and say, would you be interested in supporting the security workers in the UK security industry? And of course they said yes. So we now have a helpline for all of our members that offers real significant support for mental health and well-being. It's included in their membership. They have access 24/7 to this well-being support counselling service. But it's instant support for all kinds of issues. So there's mental health, there's addiction, there's relationships, even finances and debt management. And that's available as well as face-to-face counselling. So we all know if we went to our GP and we asked for some face-to-face counselling, we'd be put on a waiting list as long as your arm. But what Care First do is within 48 hours, they will give you access to a counsellor face to face in the town or the city where you live. So it was really, really important that we got them on board early. Already this year in January, we've run a webinar with Care First covering a variety of issues, including beating the January blues and seasonal affective disorder. So we really want to foster that supportive community of security professionals. And this is going to be helped by our close links to the Consortium for the Prevention of Suicide, for example, my presence on the EDI Security Forum. But it gives people a way to talk to someone else outside of their family, outside their friends. We all know that there's still that little bit of stigma and shyness around talking to our friends and opening up. So it just means that if you're a door supervisor and you finish work at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and you've had a bit of a rough shift and you want to speak to someone, then you can go home and you can pick up the telephone and there'll be a listening ear there that will be able to comfort you and be able to give you some direction.
That's fantastic to hear. And once again, great work that you're offering and support that you're offering to your members. And just to kind of hover slightly on obviously you mentioned a little bit of training and development in just now, as well as at the beginning when you said the training that you offer in cyber as well and to police. But what does the Federation play in ensuring kind of continuous training and development for its members? Obviously we mentioned technology and with that, body worn cameras, all these different types of tech and stuff coming in as well. Are we ensuring that we are actively trying to help upskill and train our officers?
Yeah, there is still a knowledge gap when it comes to security workers, and that's not their fault. The SIA license can only go so far, and there's a lot of videos that they can watch, including the ACT, the terrorism videos and quizzes, etc. But what we're doing at the moment is we are developing a training section of our members portal, so that when they log on to their members portal, not only will they see all of the legal support, Care First, and the retail benefits of being in the Security Industry Federation, but they'll have access to this training portal where they'll have all types of security related learning. Recently, I've supported initiatives such as Stamp Out Spiking and EIDA, which is the Employers Initiative on Domestic Abuse, facilitating talks apparently with the EIDA, with the SIA, in order for their training to be embedded within the SIA license. Our board member, Karen Whitebrow, she's trained many security workers on the front line within the nighttime economy around VOG, violence against women and girls, and the correct assistance that they can give to females at risk of harm. So instead of maybe out of our premises and down the road, kind of outside, out of mind, actually taking that time to protect those people. So all of that training is available to our members. Most of it is free. If there's any more in-depth courses that may be more than 1 day or 2 days, they are heavily discounted. But it is important for everybody to have a real rounded knowledge base when it comes to security in the UK now.
Definitely. And obviously you've mentioned a lot of collaborations and kind of partnerships and different consortiums and associations that you've partnered with. Could you give us a little bit of insight into how the Federation has worked with, perhaps law enforcement, police agencies, government bodies, and how those partnerships can benefit the industry and benefit the Federation and your members?
So we've developed a really strong relationship with the Security Industry Authority. We really have a good relationship with them in the fact that they realise that there is a need for a trade union, I believe, in this industry, and that actually they've seen what we're doing is good to support the front line, and it complements what they do with the licensing issues. So we have a single point of contact within the SIA, meaning that we can contact them when members have had their licenses suspended, for example. And it's benefited our members who rely on their license to work and provide for their families. So by having that dedicated point of contact, we're able to ensure that those licenses are reactivated quickly, as long as these people are cleared of any wrongdoing. So again, we know that, the nature of security work, especially frontline work, is there may be questions asked about what you did and why you did something, and rightly so. But what we shouldn't have is 3 or 4 month wait before someone can get their license back in order for them to start earning money and providing for their family, especially when we know that the wages are so low in the first place that they're unlikely to have savings. So it's good to have that relationship, whether it be on the diversity forum, or through our manifesto, where we've got the cooperation between retailers, law enforcement, and the SIA. Right now, I'm having talks with all of the major supermarkets within the UK in regards to what we feel like should be a policy that everyone can kind of get to grips with when it comes to intervention and security, so that we don't have all these different policies in all these different places, because we know our members, they don't just work in one place, they do float around from site to site and maybe company to company, and it is confusing for them. So I think working with law enforcement to make that relationship better between when they turn up at an incident and security have had to intervene and explain their actions, and with the retailers and the SIA, it's really bringing everyone round the table and having those discussions so that we don't cause problems in the future.
And with the evolving nature of threats and challenges, particularly in kind of, obviously we clarify the kind of local and the global context earlier. But with these evolving nature of threats, how is Security Industry Federation helping its members to kind of stay ahead of the curve or stay prepared for these emerging kind of security challenges?
Here at the Security Industry Federation, we do recognise the evolving nature of threats, and our members do need to stay ahead of the curve because of those global threats as well as domestically. So we are setting up, as I said before, our training portal, where they will be able to get all up-to-date information in regards to terrorism, ASCO, and etc. But also advocating for continuous training, whether that be more meaningful training through their license, to combat emerging trends such as that spiking, including staying informed about those threats and collaborating with the relevant stakeholders to develop proactive strategies. So it's going to have to work closely with the SIA and the employers to ensure there are no knowledge gaps. We know that there are large companies, security providers out there that have a really good knowledge hub and their staff have got access to it. We also know there's smaller companies that don't have that capability. But what we want is we want everyone to have access, regardless of whether you're self-employed, you work for a large company, or you work for a small company. We've seen that over the years, there have been critical learnings that have come out of inquiries, and we want to make sure that in future our members and the wider security workers are able to react correctly in those situations and justifiably to terrorist incidents and large-scale disorder.
Definitely. And I think also by imparting that knowledge onto the security officers themselves as well, it allows them to also help upskill the people around them. If they work in a business predominantly, I know, for example, when my partner worked at a university in London, they all had to undergo training from their security team about how to spot potential domestic abuse or threats or terrorism threats or anything like that, how to pinpoint factors so that they could alert security to anything potential. You can't be in all places at once. So just having that knowledge all round and collaborating and agreeing on a kind of continuous or what's the word, an overarching standard or legislation or ability to get that is something that's quite very important, actually, like for all the reasons that you've mentioned. Definitely interesting. And in terms of kind of innovation, how important is innovation in the security industry, and what is the Federation's approach to fostering, like we said, new innovative practices among its members?
Yeah, definitely. So look, we'd like to leverage new technologies responsibly, stay proactive in the using of the technology to their advantage. So we spoke earlier about the facial recognition CCTV. It should be a great tool for people to use. Body-worn cameras. We're now seeing that more security workers, especially those on the front line, are wearing body-worn cameras. And it's excellent that companies are investing in their people with this, because I know from being in the police that it's an excellent tool in crime prevention and identifying offenders. I know from using it myself that you can have the ability to fuse a situation when the person realizes they're being recorded. So I do believe that our members should embrace that technology, whether it be body-worn camera, facial recognition technology, rather than being afraid of it, because it's not a tool to trip you up or to catch you out about what you may have said or done. It's really to prove what other people are doing and why you took that course of action. It helps you to, really back up what you did in your actions. So again, I don't think they need to be wary. I don't think that anyone's going to be replaced by technology. It should make your job easier, not harder. And we'll certainly have something to say whether they were getting replaced by AI. But I think we're probably quite a few years away from that.
Well, don't worry, as I work in editorial, so AI is coming for me as well. But no, I think it's true. I mean, the point you mentioned about body-worn cameras is it not only acts as a deterrent, but also to protect the officer themselves. Like you said, there's a lot of officers that might find themselves in misconduct cases or losing their license because of things out of their control, because of an action they've chosen, because policies might be different, and this can help protect them in that scenario. And if that is a big challenge, then you've got a solution there as well. Yeah, I mean, I think certain types of technology definitely we need to embrace it, and I think the same with any technology, especially in the security industry, is innovation. Must be kind of kept within guardrails. You're not gonna let AI go rampant, for example, without having human intervention to go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, as we end up with data breaches and all of that malarkey. So it's taking one step at a time, and how can we actually use this and turn it as a positive to help upskill, to help better the role that security officers are doing, and the better the role of how as a customer, as a retailer, as an association or a federation, how we can help as well. So definitely using it to an advantage.
Absolutely, it's more efficient. If the police can turn up on a Saturday morning at 2 o'clock in the morning because there's been a bit of disorder outside a nightclub, they can look at the workers' body-worn camera. They can see what happened. There's no need to scoop everyone up in a kind of net and arrest everybody. It's much more efficient, much more time saving for everybody involved, and perhaps they're not going to lose their license or suspend their license and have to look for alternative employment, because we know that when they do look for alternative employments, they sometimes then end up staying in that industry that they got the alternative employment from, rather than coming back to the security industry because of what's happened to them previously.
And when there's already a recruitment and what's the word, recruitment and a skill gap in the industry, where we're looking for people to stay in it. We're trying to change the reputation of the industry and open up new career pathways to young people in education and school to say, actually, security is a career. The industry, no matter what kind of aspect you take, there's no point, kicking people out of the industry, before anything's actually happened or anything that warrants that. And I think also just to highlight one further point on using technology in that respect as well. If we have real life case studies, recordings of case studies, we can use that for training. Even if something, if somebody if a security officer, for example, made one slight, not mistake, but they could have made a better decision, but split-second decision, it's difficult to make. That can then be assessed in a classroom and go, okay, well, this is what happened. What could we have done differently? How can we approach this differently? Or was it, what are your opinions, and actually help train and better people at their roles, and train, younger people coming into those roles as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And the police are doing that already. So if it's good enough for them, then it should be good enough for us as well, really.
Exactly. And I'm just looking forward. What are your goals, for your key goals and visions for the Security Industry Federation, and how do you plan to achieve them?
Yeah, so our key goal always has been from the very start is to support our hardworking frontline staff. They endure long hours and volatile situations for, on the whole, as we've discussed, low pay and benefits. So I believe that having that bespoke trade union was much needed. It provides that expert support and excellent benefits. And I think we're well placed to ensure that the rights of our members are continually protected. We've seen that already over the last 14 months. Our feedback has been excellent. People are joining up in their waves because they've seen the testimonials and they can see that we've done. And when something's good, it spreads just as fast as when something's bad. So we do plan to achieve these goals through those continued advocacy and collaboration. We are proactive in our engagement with the industry stakeholders. law enforcement, and through our manifesto. Our manifesto keeps us on that right track for the rest of this year.
Definitely. And just finally, on the last note, what has been your most significant learning experience as a president of the Security Industry Federation, and how has that shaped your approach to leadership in this field?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot was made, I think, of the fact that I came from policing, which is in itself a security by nature. But coming into the security industry is different. There are different nuances between policing and security. So it's great to get involved in that side of things. And I think my most significant learning experience as president has been recognizing that diverse challenge faced by our security professionals, the huge differences between the working methods of each different company of varying sizes. Now, we know that there's a lot of different police forces in the UK, but not on any scale of how many different security companies there are to work for and the different practices. So it's in understanding the importance of a unified voice in advocating for the workers' rights within this sector, and without the need to disrupt. But I think the fact that we have gone in here without that need to disrupt, we haven't said the word strike. We haven't said that everybody should down tools. We are all for advocacy and getting people around the table to speak. So my approach to leadership is by emphasizing that collaboration, the continuous learning, and in having a commitment to positive change in the industry for the benefit of both the employee and the employer.
Well, wise words to end there. Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate that. And I think the key takeaway is that collaboration and that transparency between industries to actually kind of better everything that we're doing for everyone involved. So thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and once again for your support as well. If anybody has any further questions, they can reach out to Daniel on the platform, or get in touch on LinkedIn or through the Security Industry Federation. Thank you for your time.
Excellent, thank you.